I've used the word legend before, but this time I really, really mean it, because the man sitting next to me can only be described as thus. His name is Trevor Horn, and we're lucky enough to be here at his house at a secret location in North London, in his studio, no less. Trevor, first of all, thanks very much for having us here.
Pleasure.
And first of all, one of the things that you're up to in the near future, of course, is a gig at Shepherd's Bush Empire on March the 5th, a Thursday.
The 5th, yeah, Thursday night.
Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I'm quite excited about it, actually, because what we're going to try and do is recreate Studio One at Psalm on the stage at Shepherd's Bush Empire. And I don't know if anyone's ever tried this before, because we have a lot of screens. We're gonna try and do it in quite an unusual way, so the sound is really special.
Okay, and your backing band is going to be the Producers.
Yeah, well, it's myself, Jeff Downs from the Boggles, Steve Lipson, who's the record producer, Lol Cream, who from 10cc, Ash Sohn, who if you watch The Voice, is the drummer, the guy you see every night. So that's the sort of nucleus of the band. And Louis Jardine, the percussion player. It's all like the guys who played on all the records in one, We said, like, now that we're getting old, we all like playing together, So we're all looking forward to it.
And I understand Seal, who you're currently working on an album with, is going to be singing. Is that right?
Yeah. Seal really likes singing with the band, because when he sings with the band, he's like the lead singer, you know what I mean? Rather than it being Seal, and so he's quite prepared to sort of take on other songs, He does a great version of "I'm Not in Love," and
does he?
He really does, and the other one that he does surprisingly well is "Owner of a Lonely Heart." And I always make the joke that he's kind of president of the John Anderson fan club. But he actually sings there. I mean, that's the thing about Seal. He could sing the telephone directory,
Yeah.
But he enjoys it because it's a band kind of thing,
But surely you take over for Video Kill the Radio Star.
Oh, yes. I do. But Seal actually wants to sing Plastic Age now. Mm-hmm. So I thought he might sing that on the gig. That would be funny.
Right, okay. And how is his album coming along? I hear it's been a year so far.
Well, we're sort of coming up to a year, which is about... But when people say a year, they think that, it's working times. We have been on it for a year, though, on and off. And it's nearly finished. It's like that far away,
Right, okay. And
I think it's terrific, but I'm obviously going to think that because I've been working my ass off on it for the past year.
Yeah.
But I do. It's Seal's singing better than ever, because, of course, it's sort of 25 years on from the first time we worked together, and he's been sort of gigging more or less non-stop. So he's like, some people get worse as they get older. Seal's voice is in amazing shape,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what people make of the album. And
do you? We were talking earlier about the fact that you're a studio-aholic and have a number of studios around the place. Probably. Do you have any abroad?
Yes, I've got a studio in Los Angeles and house in Los Angeles.
Oh, right, okay. Well,
Kanye West's in there at the moment.
Oh, is he? Right, yeah. Okay. Are you still writing songs? Do you sit down and sort of strum the acoustic or the bass or the piano behind us and sort of indulge that part of your skill set, as it were?
Well, that's the funny thing, you see, because I started out as a musician, so. The first thing, if I'm working on a song, the first thing I do is I learn to play it myself so I can understand the song and feel it, because then I can feel where it's lacking or where it needs to be. So yes, I still do. I love doing that. And sometimes people invite me to do it.
Yeah. Well, actually, you're renowned for often producing and playing on records that you produce, and that's kind of one of your trademarks.
No, I still love music, and it's still one of the most fun things, And at various parties, I've been the most amazing backing band for drunken ladies who want to sing various songs, because I know them all, and I can also wind them up a little bit. So,
Looking back at some of your well, I mean, it was quite shocking for me to do some research on you because I didn't realise, and I think people don't, just how many people you've produced and worked with and written with down the years. The list is quite staggering, isn't it?
I know.
Is there anyone who's still out there that you'd still like to work with?
Yes, there's some. The thing is, there's some really good singers around at the moment.
Right.
I mean, to mention just one, Paolo Nutini is a brilliant singer, absolutely brilliant, and the. I mean, I'm the world's worst with names, but Sia has a fabulous voice. I love her voice. It's a new kind of woman's voice that I haven't heard. That works really well. John Legend's a terrific. So I've actually worked with John Legend.
Yes.
And he's a terrific singer. So the way it is when you're a producer, it's if people need you. A lot of people don't need a producer. A lot of people are their own producer. But most big artists need somebody to make their record with.
Yeah, sure.
But it's still it's fragmented a little bit more than it used to, you see, because the guys that make the boy band records, they're generally the songwriters. They're a songwriting team. I'm more old school, where I've done songs that I've written, but I do other people's songs as well. But you wouldn't much find, say, the team of guys that do, who's a big boy band, One Direction or one of the other ones. That's what they do, you see. That's different. I've done that as well with Dollar and people like that back in the early 80s, but...
And you worked with Robbie Williams not so long ago.
Yeah, that was great. Funny enough, I always wanted to work with him because I always liked him. He held the door open for me once.
Oh, did he?
And I was
polite boy.
I said to somebody, "What a nice guy." That's always a good sign in an artist, And what a voice! To me, he had like a classic kind of English pop voice.
That was the title of which was an homage to your first hit.
Reality Killed the Video Star, yeah.
Yeah.
That was his idea, not mine. Because when he phoned me up and said it, I said, every time anybody asks me about that, I'm going to say, it was your idea, not mine. Right?
Now, I'm an older prog merchant, and you actually, back in the early 80s, after Buggles... or perhaps during Buggles.
Well, after the first Buggles album.
After the first Buggles album.
Yeah.
You joined, after John...
I did join, yes.
John Anderson left, and I think Rick Wakeman...
John Anderson and Rick Wakeman left, so Jeffrey and I, the two Buggles, joined, yes. It was a rather extraordinary thing to do.
Yeah.
And it was very like that film, where the guy... The guy joined his favourite band.
Yeah.
Well, it was exactly like that for me because during the 70s, like when I was playing in nightclubs, I have a vivid memory of watching Yes on the TV in between sets at the Cavendish Club in Leicester or something, Bailey's Club in Leicester. Thinking, God, I'd love to be in that band, but never dreaming that. And so, and then of course we had the big hit and. We had the same management as Yes, so we ended up with Yes, and I ended up singing at Madison Square Gardens for 3 nights.
That must have been an extraordinary thing, because you have to learn the back catalogue and then produce. John Anderson's a fairly unique vocalist as well, but and then of course you went on to work with my favourite band, Genesis, my favourite prog band.
Yeah, Genesis was one track, and I did a version of Carpet Crawlers for them. And it was fun because they're such a nice bunch of fellas and they're all so different. I couldn't resist it because when Phil did the BVs, because obviously Peter was singing lead because it was the original band.
Yeah.
After the first run through, I said to him, I don't suppose you ever thought of going solo, have you? You got a pretty good voice. I couldn't resist it. I said, I'm sorry, I just had to do that.
Yeah,
right?
good fun.
And of course he said, well, I've been singing this song for 16 years and now I'm relegated to backing vocals.
Yes, I've often wondered if they did a reunion, how that would work, but we'll have to wait for that possibly.
Yeah.
So what else is on the horizon, Trevor? How are you?
Well, we're opening up a really great new facility. It's we're sort of it's beginning to work. We're beginning to take bookings for it, but the real opening is going to be in April. We're building the Psalm Music Village on
Yes.
Ladbroke Grove, and that's like a kind of, it's sort of like a modern version of Psalm West, stripped right back to just have what people need, but done in a really imaginative way. Still keeping that idea of a lot of rooms so that people can mingle in areas that Psalm always had. Lots of things happened at Psalm Studios because people, you'd have George Michael wandering around and Metallica from upstairs, all kinds of strange combinations of people. And I think people like that, but obviously we have to scale it down a little bit because the world's different and people record differently. So the Music Village is like a modern studio.
Right, okay, so that's coming up. In terms of the modern music scene, it's obviously changed dramatically, and some people would say not for the better at the moment, without... Well, I don't know, it's
still great songs, though.
Yes.
I still hear I thought Mark Ronson absolutely surpassed himself with this Uptown Funk. I thought it was absolutely brilliant
Right.
when I first heard it. I mean, I know Mark, and it's like the best thing he's ever done, and I love it because it sounds like dance music that I like, and I'm, getting on a bit. The other dance music sounds to me often like the washing machine is just in its cycle,
Yes.
But that sounds like something I can relate to. So I loved things like Hosier, Get Me to Take You to the Church. There's lots of really good records around. I loved Paolo the Birdie, the one with the Charlie Chaplin sample on. I love that song. So I still find things to really like in the charts. I always think pop music's really just as lively as it's ever been.
You were renowned for producing a certain sound which involved, cutting edge of technology.
Yeah.
That technology, am I right in thinking that, in all honesty, if you listen to a Frankie Goes to Hollywood record or whatever, I don't see how it could have sounded much more modern if you did it today.
No, because in actual fact, the technology that we were using back in 1983 or 83 when we did most of that, 84 when we did the album, was actually sounded better than modern technology. It just did because it was much more technical and it had a different kind of bandwidth.
Right.
It was a total pain in the ass to deal with half the time, but it did sound better. And something like Two Tribes was the first ever digital #1. I've got the plaque somewhere from Sony to say that was the first #1 record from any of their Sony 24-track machines. So that's why it still sounds really good. Nothing's dated really about it.
No, I was having a listen just before we came out, just sort of some of your tracks.
It was really Two Tribes is really like the first high energy dance record.
Yeah.
I never heard a record like that before Two Tribes, and then of course loads of things started to sound like Two Tribes. If you think about it, you think back, it was lots of things came from that. So I feel the same way about it. It still sounds great to me.
Yes, indeed. And of course, back in those days when everything you touched turned to gold, and all the money started rolling in, what did you spend it on, or did you just save it?
I've always been.
Have you been frugal?
My wife, my late wife, Jill, was really the person that sort of ran everything and looked after business. And in a way, if I look back on it, when she took over managing me, she kind of made me really, because she made that sort of slightly, with her choices of the things that I did in the early 80s.
Right.
When you say a lot of the money we have invested back into the music business.
Yeah.
The recording studios, they made money in the 80s and 90s, but they haven't made money for a while. And but what has come from our recording studios, we've educated. At the moment, I'm looking for somebody to, I need a really big mixer to mix the Seal album. Right, there are two contenders. I'm going to say who they are. Both of them used to work for me. Right?
Oh, I see.
So loads of people in the music business used to work for me. They got their training at Psalm.
Sure.
So Psalm, I suppose because of me, has kept going a lot longer than it would have done. But now this is a way of keeping it going for the foreseeable future. by scaling it down a little bit.
Right. So the one of your legacies, apart from an extraordinary body of music, both written by you and produced by you, is a lot of people have found employment in the music industry and go on to to procreate.
So we've reinvested a lot of it in that. You know, we have a bit of property, and I've never been a.
Not Ferraris and
no, I'm not really. I mean,
and islands next to Richard Branson.
No, not really into that.
No, fair enough.
Always believe in don't spend it till you've got it. You know, as well.
No, fair enough.
Especially in the music business.
That seems a good idea. Well, finally, Trevor, we obviously, if we could just come back to the gig that we're all looking forward to, and how do you go about selecting a set list when you've got such an extraordinary... I mean, it must be a headache for you to think, well, which songs will people want, or will they feel disappointed not to hear? And
well, what we try and do in the show is it's all hit singles, this show. No album tracks.
I see, right.
So all hit singles. So I think in the sort of list that we've got, there's about 14 or 15 of them were number ones, you know. So because it's, you know, from Lol, myself, and Steve, you know, because Steve Lipson produced Annie Lennox and
I see, right,
and Propaganda, you know. Steve's really made, and Will Young, you know, Think I'm Gonna Leave Right Now, and Cher, and all kinds of people. So between the sort of 3 or 4 of us, there's a lot of songs that we can call on. But for this show, it's all as close to number one as we can get.
Right. And have you started rehearsing, or do you need to rehearse? Or
well, we need to rehearse for this show because we've been doing shows on and off for a couple of years for various things, but this show we're rehearsing for because we're going to learn a load of new songs.
Well, let's hope you can find a studio to rehearse in, Trevor. I'm sure that won't be a problem.
I've already booked it.
Well, that's a good note to end on. Trevor Horn, thanks very much for talking to us. It's been a great pleasure.
Okay, my pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.